This next chapter is all about setting type in Illustrator, but before we actually get into the nitty-gritty and the fun stuff, we first need to understand the two basic types of type that you can create inside of Illustrator. The first one is called point type, and basically that just means that you point, click, and start typing. And so in order to do that, you have to grab the type tool, which is located in the toolbar. It's the big T, or you can just simply press the letter T on your keyboard. In order to create point type, just simply point your mouse, click your mouse, and start typing. So in this case, we're going to type out the name of this magician, which is the Great Justini. And then we are going to grab our selection tool and just kind of move it somewhere in this region here. Don't worry about the fact that it's small and that we can't really read it right now. We're going to get there throughout the rest of this chapter. So let's just place that there for now. Now let's also create something called an area type object. An area type object means that you are going to actually draw out a text box for text to fit in on your document. So go ahead and grab the type tool again. This time we're going to come down into the bottom region here and we're just going to click and draw out a box. And for right now, it does not matter how big or how small that box is, just draw something. And so what we're going to type out here is one night only. Press the return key. Saturday, May 23rd at the @ symbol, 9 p.m. And we're going to say that this is happening in Los Angeles, California. Then we'll click the selection tool and we can just kind of move this around. So what's the difference between these two types of type objects? Well, first and foremost, the area type object is constrained by this box, meaning that the text will only go from this edge to this edge. Whereas a point type object, you could literally just type as far as you wanted to go and it would just continue to go all the way over to the right-hand side. There is no line break in a point text object. Also, you can resize the box that area type comes in, and the only thing that's going to happen to the text is it might get actually covered up by the box. So you see here I can actually cover up Los Angeles, California. Whereas a point type object, if I try to scale it up, it just gets bigger. So there's no box to be had there. Now, what happens if you accidentally create point type when you meant to create area type or vice versa? Luckily, there's a way to convert your type objects in Illustrator. So for instance, this point type object right here, the Great Justini, just go up to the type menu and go down to convert to area type. When you do that, you're going to see the box changes a little bit. I'll zoom in so you can see it. And now, when I scale it, it's just a box that gets bigger instead of the text itself. I can easily convert it back by going to Type, Convert to Point Type, and it's going to snap right back to its original self. Same holds true for this. I can go to Type, Convert to Point Type, and when I do that, it turns into a point type object, which I can then scale up or down, just like so. Then I can go back to Type, Convert to area type, and it changes it back into a box. So no matter which one you create, you can always get back to the other one if you need to. These are both very flexible ways of creating and managing your type objects in Illustrator. So hopefully now we have a good grasp on what these things are, how to use them, and how to convert between them. Because now it's time to actually start customizing this type to make it look like something. Now that we understand the difference between point and area type, it's time to start customizing our type to make it actually look like something. Because right now, on this poster design for the Great Justini, it's really not looking all that great. So what we're going to do is just make some basic edits using the control panel so you can get yourself familiar with some of the type tools. Most of what we'll be doing should be relatively familiar if you've ever used a word processing program before. So let's select this first bit of text here, the Great Justini, and when we have that selected, let's go up into the control panel so that we can see the options we have. You can see up here at the top, it says type. That means I have a type object selected. So I can change the color just by dropping this down. So let's select white as the color. It's going to make that a white piece of text. There you go. And over here, we have a character drop down. So if I wanted to change what font I'm using, I could drop this down, and then let's just change it to something. Well, you can change it to whatever you want. I'm going to change it to Playbill. Not my first choice for a typeface, but it'll do. Let's put Playbill as the typeface, and let's change this to about, 24-point font. There we go. Still not quite big enough. Let's beef that up. 72. There we go. Now let's move this back over into the main window like so, and let's focus on making basic edits for this paragraph text down here. First thing I'm going to do is move the box over and expand it out so it has plenty of room. And then let's go up here and let's make some changes. So I'm going to drop this down. You'll notice that there's not any swatches in this document. If I open up the swatches library, I can go down to the default swatches and we can open up the basic RGB colors. Collapse this back up, and that way we can start applying some things to this. So I'm going to look inside of this dialog box, and I think what I want is something kind of like this light brown color here for the text. There we go. So we'll add that in there. And let's go up here and let's change the typeface for this. So this one needs to be a little bit more legible. It has all the details of what we're doing, but I don't want it to just be Myriad Pro. So let's find something a little bit different. Let's do Trajan Pro for this. And again, you can select whatever you want for yours. And then I'm also going to come in here and double click on the text, select One Night Only, and let's make One Night Only a little bigger, like 24 points. And then down here, let's move Los Angeles by clicking right before the L and pressing the backspace key. Let's move that back to the line ahead of it. And then we'll put a space, hold down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on the PC, put a bullet in there with the 8. So Option 8 on the Mac gives you a little bullet. And then now I've got One Night Only, Saturday, May 23rd, 9 p.m., Los Angeles, California. Now I want to make sure that all of this is centered in here. So let's grab the selection tool. It's going to select the entire object. And then right up here is the paragraph panel dropdown, and I can select center aligned right there, snapping it in. So, as you can see, most of the type controls inside of Illustrator are very familiar if you've used word processing programs before, and we can get to a great number of them from within the control panel. However, we really need to familiarize ourselves with the type panels that are available to us in Illustrator, and I'll show you that in the next movie. The type panels in Illustrator CC are hidden by default. You have to go and find them. So in this movie, I'm going to show you where to find them and how to use them. Let's go up to the window menu here, go down into this big list of panels that we have access to, and go to Type and just choose Character. That's going to bring up most of the type panels that we need. The character, the paragraph, and the open type panels. We're also missing the character styles and the paragraph styles. Let's go to Window. Let's go back down to Type. Let's open up the character styles panel. That'll open up both character and paragraph styles. And we can just make sure that we dock those to the bottom like that. And then usually in my workspace, when I'm working normally, I'll have these docked over here, and I'll put them in icon form so that I can easily get to them whenever I need them. And these type panels are very powerful. They have lots of different options that we can use. So in this case, let's select the Great Justini type that we have here, and let's open up the character panel. And in the character panel, we have lots of different options, but we have even more options hidden inside of this little dropdown. So let's choose Show Options, and that's going to give me the full character panel. This is where I can do a lot of stuff. I can change the typeface, I can change the style, I can change the font size, I can set the kerning, I can change vertical scale, baseline shift, character rotation, horizontal scale, tracking, leading, and then also at the bottom I have controls for all caps, small caps, superscript, subscript, underline, and strike through. So for this type right here, I think I want to do all caps. That way, it's all capital, looks a little bit more bold, a little bit more like what I'm going for the look of this poster. And so I'll just apply that. I also think that the letters are a little too tight together. So let's increase the tracking just a little bit here. Let's drop this down and let's add in about 10 for the tracking. Maybe even a little bit more. Maybe 15, something like that. If you don't know what tracking is, it's basically spacing out the characters across this whole thing of type, whereas kerning is reducing the space or expanding the space in between two individual characters. This does it across the board, all the way across a group of text. Now, in addition to this, I want to make some changes to the text underneath here. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and adjust the leading amount here, and we'll just go ahead and start expanding this out. You can see by making that change that it automatically kind of spread it out a little too far. So let's bring that back up quite a bit and set this to somewhere around, I think 25 works really well. And then we'll close up the box, something like that. And let's expand out the tracking a little bit for this one as well. There we go. And you can also, instead of just using the leading feature, you could go in and add space after a paragraph. In this case, you could do that from the paragraph panel. Paragraph panel is also a very powerful panel. You can control how the text is aligned, so left, center, right, justified with last line aligned left, justified with last line aligned center, justified with last line aligned right, and justify all the lines. This is also where you can control things like hyphenation, so you can turn that off. You can control left indent, first line indent, right indent, space before and space after paragraphs. And if you go into the drop-down, you can hide the options, and that will just sort of collapse any extra options that it has in there. You also have controls for Roman hanging punctuation, justification, hyphenation, and you can reset the panel from there as well. The open type panel only applies to open type fonts, so we don't have to worry about that in this case. But if we had an open type font that we could customize, we would use this to create things like extra ligatures and real fancy swash caps and things like that. But for now, I think we're just going to leave that alone. You also have access to the paragraph and character styles panels. This allows you to take a piece of text and turn it into a character or a paragraph style. So for instance, this right here would be a great paragraph style for a heading. So I'll go into the paragraph styles, click new, paragraph style 1, double click. We'll just call this heading. Save that. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to select this paragraph first. We'll call this info heading. And this, we'll call this info paragraph. There we go. So now we've got 3 different styles. If we wanted to create a character styles are mainly meant for individual pieces of text or text that lies within a greater body of text. In this case, we just have big, bold headlines, nothing in a paragraph or anything like that that needs to be italicized or have its color changed or anything like that, so we don't have to worry about it. So for now, I think we're pretty good to go on that. So the type panels in Illustrator, as long as you have them out on your screen, you can access them relatively quickly, and they have great power. As you can see right here, our design is really coming along as we continue to customize it, and it's only going to get better as we go along. There may come a time when you need to make your text wrap around a certain object in the design that you're working on. And so in that case, you're going to need to create something called a text wrap. And in this movie, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, because it's not particularly obvious how to do it right off the bat. So for instance, if I wanted to create a text wrap of this bit of text around this little moon globe looking thing over here, how would I do that? Well, maybe it's in the character panel. Let's take a look here. Anything with text wrap? Any options for text? Nope, nothing in there. So where do we go in order to do that? Well, we actually go into the Object menu. In the Object menu, we go down to Text Wrap and we select Make. And when we select Make, it's going to come up with this little dialog box that says text will wrap around all objects in this current selection, including type objects. So we hit OK. But it doesn't wrap around the globe. So what happens? Well, here's the kicker. You have to make the text wrap on the item you want the text to wrap around, not the text itself. So undo that, edit, undo, and go over here and select the actual globe. Then go to Object, Text Wrap, Make. And when you do that, you'll see an extra circle added to the outside of that. Then you have to move this globe above the text. So right-click the globe, choose Arrange, Bring to Front. When you bring it to front, all the text is going to flow right around that. You can then adjust the text until it fits again, something kind of like this, and it looks pretty good. You can also select the object, go into the Object menu, go down to Text Wrap, and select Text Wrap Options. In the Text Wrap Options, you can hit a preview, and then you can choose the amount of offset for the text. So in this case, I think probably about 4 points is the best. We can hit OK, and there we go. So the next time you have to wrap text around an object inside of Illustrator, just make sure that the object itself is on top of the text you need to wrap it around, and then put the text wrap on the object, not the text you're actually trying to move. Having your text flow along a path that you create is a great way to add a little bit of a customized touch to an otherwise boring set of text. And in this movie, I'm going to show you how to flow your text along a path. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take this great Justini text and let's just move it off to the side out here on the pasteboard. And once we do that, we're going to have some room out here where we're going to draw a path. And we're going to draw the path using the pencil tool. So I'm just going to double click on the pencil tool, make sure that my smooth setting is all the way over to the right, and we'll hit OK. Now I'm just going to start off with a little wave. Just going to do a little wave right across there. So just go up and down like that. And once I have that created, that's going to be the path that I stick my text onto. I'm then going to grab my type tool, click and hold on that, and choose Type on a Path. When I have that selected, I'll click in order to start my text. In this case, I can type out the great Justini, just like I had before. Now, do I have to do anything else to this text in order to make it look like that up there? Well, the only thing I really have to do is bring up the paragraph style. So let's select this text, go to the paragraph styles, and choose heading. And that should make it appear right there on that path. Now, the issue is, of course, it doesn't actually fit on the path. So I need to back down the size of this text, something kind of like that. Then I'll click on the selection tool, and there is my text flowing along a path. You see also when you have a text object that's on a path selected, it has these little bars. These little bars indicate little things that you can do with the text. So for instance, here I can adjust the starting point of the text. See how I can make it flow different directions on that path? I can also change this end point right here and clip some of the text off. And finally right here, I can control the direction of the text to flip it back and forth. If you want to get control of the path, use the direct selection tool to find one of the anchor points. Once you have one of those anchor points selected, you're now working on the path itself. You can then grab the pencil tool and you can come to the end and you could continue with this path. So in this case, I'll extend this path just a little bit more. That way, I can actually increase the size of my text again. So we can increase this just like so, and then come in here, extend the end point all the way out to the end of this, and I can get back the full size of the text. Once I do that, I'll zoom out, and you can see my finished product. The Great Justini now flows across that path. I can remove the original Great Justini text if I want to, just by clicking on it, pressing the delete key, and then let me press Command or Control 0, and there is the finished result. So the next time you want to add just a little bit of flair to the text, try typing on a path. You can do it on a curved path like I did. It can be up and down straight sides. It can be all around a circle. The choices literally are limitless. Up until now, we've been making changes to our text using the type panels and also the control panel. But I want to give you some really cool keyboard shortcuts to help you sort of expedite your type workflow. So let's zoom in on the text we have down here, and let's just select the Great Justini. And then what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the font size simply by using our keyboard. In order to do this, what you're going to do is you're going to hold down the Shift key, and then you're going to hold down the Command key on a Mac, the Control key on a PC. Once you have those held down, you're going to tap either the greater than or the less than sign. If you tap on the less than sign, it's obviously going to shrink the text down. If you tap on the greater than sign, it's going to increase the size of the text. You can also hold down Shift, Option, or Alt, and the Command key or Control key, and you can go in larger intervals, so 10 points at a time. If you're not holding down the Option or Alt key, it only goes in 2-point increments. So if you want a finer level of control, just hold down Shift and Command or Control. If you want to just do big chunky jumps, go Shift, Option, or Alt, Command or Control, and then tap less than or greater than. That's the easiest way to change the size of your text. Now let's go to the paragraph directly beneath it. Remember earlier I was adjusting the leading. Well, I don't have to do that with my type panels. I can do that with my keyboard. I can hold down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on a PC, and I can simply tap the up arrow key on my keyboard and it will adjust the leading for me. The same holds true for tracking. If I'm not happy with the tracking, I could select the Great Justini again, and I could start expanding it out by holding down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on the PC, and tapping the right arrow key to increase the tracking, or the left arrow key to decrease the tracking. These are all shortcuts that I use on a daily basis that really help me get control of my type without taking my mouse or my eyes off the main content window. I think this is a better way to work, and if you take the time to commit these shortcuts to memory, pretty soon you'll be doing it without even thinking about it. Okay, it's finally time to talk about one of my favorite type features. It's called Typekit. Typekit is a service that was originally intended for web typography, but when Adobe purchased it a few years back and integrated it into the Creative Cloud, they began allowing users to sync Typekit fonts directly to their desktop. And so in this movie, I'm going to show you how to go out to the Typekit website and sync these fonts directly to your Creative Cloud account and then use them inside of your Illustrator documents. Let's go up here to the Creative Cloud desktop application. Inside of the Creative Desktop application, inside of this application, you can go over to Assets, and in Assets, there's a tab for Fonts. By default, this might be turned off. If that's the case, there should be a button here that says Enable Typekit Fonts or Sync Typekit Fonts. Go ahead and enable that now, or you can go into your preferences and turn it on. If you're ready to add fonts from Typekit, go ahead and click Add Fonts from Typekit. Once you click Add Fonts from Typekit, that's going to take you to this website. It should automatically log you in using your username and password for Creative Cloud. If it doesn't, go ahead and sign in using the same username and password that you do for the Adobe Creative Cloud applications. Once you're here, you now have the ability to sync any of the Typekit desktop fonts directly to your computer and then use them in Illustrator. So let's go through this and let's find a new typeface for our magician poster that we've been working on. So let's go ahead and choose something like decorative. And let's scroll through this list here. We want something that's good for headings. And that's going to narrow it down to two basic ones. So Sail and Stencil, STD. Well, let's sync Sail to our computer. I'll click on Use Font, Sync Selected Font. Then I'll click Launch Creative Cloud Application. Once I get confirmation that it's been synced, I'll go back over into Illustrator to give it a try. Once I'm inside of Illustrator, I'll select the piece of text that I want to apply this new font to, go up to the Character Panel dropdown, and you'll see this little TK at the top here. That allows me to filter based on Typekit fonts. So I can apply that, and only the Typekit fonts I have currently synced will show up. If I click on that, I can see what this looks like. Not really feeling that. But remember, we have something applied to this, the all caps setting. So let's go to the Character Panel here and turn off all caps. Let's see what that looks like. Still not exactly what I want. So if I want to get more fonts, I'll drop this down, choose Add Fonts from Typekit. That'll launch a whole other window, just like we had before, same basic setup. Once we get here, I'll just click on Decorative, and let's find some of these decorative fonts that I might want for my magician poster. So I'll scroll through here, and I don't really like any of the decorative fonts, so let's uncheck that box, and let's find something maybe like black letter, something like that. And let's sync this font, Givery. Sync it, launch the desktop application, make sure that it's synced, looks good. Let's jump over into Illustrator. The font is already there. I can apply it, and I really like the way that looks, but I'm going to change it up a bit. So let's move this over just for a second so I can get a hold of it. I'm going to double click inside of the text box and press Enter or Return. Then we'll select this. Let's use the keyboard shortcut we learned earlier, the Option and Up arrow key to remove some of the leading. And I'm going to select the top line, change the font size quite a bit just by using Shift and the Command key on a Mac, Control key on a PC, and the less than sign. Then once I have that, we've got this great Justini here. I'm going to grab Paragraphs, make sure it's center aligned, then bring it back down, and I'll scale it up. There we go. If I want to remove just a little bit more of the space, I can do that. Now, once I have that applied, let's work on this font down here at the bottom. Let's go back to this drop down here. Go back to Add Fonts from Typekit. We'll add one more font here. Once we have Typekit open, let's look for a serif font that's good for paragraphs. And we want it to have this X height attribute, kind of a higher X height. And the one that I like here is Expo Serif Pro. So let's use that font. You can click Show All Fonts, and it'll show you different styles that you can select from. In this case, I don't think I need the bold italic or the bold, probably just the regular and italic. So I'll hit Sync, then launch the Creative Cloud desktop app. Make sure that that syncs over. Let's jump back into Illustrator, and let's apply this to our text down here. So let's go in, select Expo Serif. That looks good. And we'll tuck this in just like that underneath. There we go. The only thing that I would probably do here is on this text, I would add a live effect by going to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow, preview it, and I would increase the opacity here to about 60%. That looks good. And so there is my finished poster. I would probably move this down just a little to get it away from the globe. But for the most part, I'm done. And I made it look 10 times better, in my opinion, just by using those Typekit desktop fonts. And the best part about this is, if I send this to someone else who has Creative Cloud, but they haven't synced these fonts yet, Illustrator will automatically prompt them when they launch this file to sync the fonts that are missing to their desktop, making it a seamless transition. You no longer have to worry about if you have the fonts or if they have the fonts or if you have the license or what have you. All of that is taken care of through the Creative Cloud, which makes it super easy to create great typographical layouts without any of the fuss. The final movie in our type chapter is going to show you how to create paths out of your type. Now, first you might be wondering, why would I want to do that? Well, if you're sending out your file for commercial print and the printer that you're working with either isn't a Creative Cloud subscriber or doesn't have the font that you've used inside of your document, then you might want to consider converting your font or your type to outlines. That way, when you send this to them, they don't have to worry about syncing any fonts or anything else. All they have is vector information. The downside here, of course, is that you lose the editability of the type once you create the outlines. So it may be a good idea to save a copy of your file first with the live text and then send another copy to your printer or whomever you're sending it to with the outline text. Let me show you how this works. Let me select the Great Justini here, and let's go up to the Type menu and go down to Create Outlines. Once I do that, you're going to see that it's no longer editable text. It just turns into a bunch of paths that are grouped together. Down here at the bottom, let's select the One Night Only text, and let's this time do it with a keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut for creating outlines is holding down the Shift key, pressing the Command or Control key, and then tapping on the letter O on your keyboard. That will quickly turn your font into outlines without having to go up to any menu at all. Again, this is only when you're sending files to other people or people that you might be concerned don't have this or don't have Creative Cloud. I would never convert my type to outlines if it was a file that I was only going to be working on myself, because I care too much about the editability of the text. So again, make sure you save a copy of the editable text so that you can get back to it at any point. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with these paths or be forced to reset your type altogether.